Imagine buying your dream home in a quiet American neighborhood, raising your family there, building your future there, only to discover years later that your entire community had been built on top of a toxic chemical dump. Because that's exactly what happened at Love Canal. In the 1950s and 1960s, families began moving into a peaceful neighborhood near Niagara Falls, New York. The streets were quiet, the homes were affordable, and it seemed like the perfect place to build a life. Neighbors knew each other, children played outside, and nothing about the area seemed unusual. But beneath those homes, beneath the roads, beneath the schoolyards, a secret had been buried for decades. Years earlier, developers had planned to build a canal in the area. The project was never completed, leaving behind a massive trench stretching across the landscape. Instead of finishing the canal, the abandoned site was eventually used as a dumping ground. Over time, thousands of tons of industrial waste were buried there. Chemical drums, toxic sludge, and hazardous materials were dumped into the canal and covered with dirt. Eventually, the land looked completely normal. Grass grew, roads were built, homes were constructed. A neighborhood was born directly above the buried waste. For years, nobody suspected anything. Life went on as usual. Families settled in, children went to school, new residents continued moving into the community. From the surface, Love Canal looked like any other American neighborhood. Then, strange things started happening. Residents began noticing unusual chemical odors. Some described strange smells drifting through their yards after rainstorms. Others noticed black substances appearing in puddles in low-lying areas. At first, many people assumed it was harmless. But the problem didn't disappear. After heavy rains, dark, oily liquids sometimes surfaced through the soil. Strange residues appeared in backyards. Some plants died unexpectedly. Neighbors started comparing stories and realizing they weren't imagining things. As concerns grew, more residents began paying attention. The smells became harder to ignore. The strange substances kept appearing. And then, people started worrying about something even more serious: their health. Doctors in the area began seeing unusual patterns. More families were reporting illnesses. More medical concerns seemed to be appearing within the same neighborhood. Residents started asking difficult questions. Was it a coincidence? Or was something in the environment making people sick? The concerns spread quickly through the community. Parents worried about their children. Neighbors compared experiences. More and more people demanded answers. Soon, community meetings were packed with frustrated residents. Families wanted to know why strange chemicals were appearing around their homes. They wanted to know why so many people were concerned about their health. Most importantly, they wanted to know what was hidden beneath their neighborhood. Eventually, public pressure became impossible to ignore. An official investigation was launched. Environmental experts arrived and began testing the soil around homes and public areas.
Samples were carefully collected and sent to laboratories for analysis. Residents waited anxiously for answers. When the results came back, they shocked everyone. Investigators discovered that the neighborhood had been built directly on top of thousands of tons of buried toxic chemical waste. The abandoned canal beneath the community wasn't just a construction site. It was a massive chemical dump. Even worse, many of the buried containers had already begun leaking. Dangerous chemicals were spreading through the soil and surrounding environment. What residents had been seeing for years suddenly made sense. The strange smells, the black substances, the growing concerns, all of it pointed back to the toxic waste hidden beneath the neighborhood. The discovery quickly became national news. Government officials, environmental experts, and journalists descended on Love Canal. The story spread across America. What had started as local concerns had become one of the biggest environmental scandals in the country's history. As the full scale of the contamination became clear, officials faced a difficult decision: Families could no longer safely remain in many parts of the neighborhood. Evacuations began. Residents who had spent years building their lives there were told they might have to leave everything behind. Homes were abandoned. Streets grew quieter. Entire sections of the community emptied as families packed their belongings and moved away.
What had once been a symbol of the American dream was becoming a warning. A warning about environmental negligence. A warning about hidden dangers. And a warning about what can happen when short-term decisions create long-term consequences. Love Canal eventually became one of the most famous environmental disasters in American history. The scandal helped transform how environmental hazards were investigated and regulated across the United States. But for the families who lived there, it wasn't just a story in a history book. It was their homes, their neighborhood, their lives.